Yeah, more part of that peace plan that's, as Donald Trump hailed it, is still being fleshed out. Yet right now, the guns are silent on the day 2 after the signing. More bodies to be released in the coming hours, says Hamas. 4 have been handed over to Israel, with the Israelis handing over the bodies of 45 Palestinians in return. The International Committee of the Red Cross doing the mediation role in all of this. Emerald Maxwell has more.
Outside the Institute of Forensic Medicine, where the bodies of 4 deceased hostages were sent for identification Monday, a sign reads "Sorry" in Hebrew. The military has named 2 of the victims as Israeli national Guy Iluz and Bipin Joshi, an agricultural student from Nepal. The names of the other 2 have not been released at the request of their families. The jubilation Israelis felt at the return of all the living hostages, as well as the 4 coffins, is tempered by grief that the remains of 24 hostages are still missing.
I'm very sad that there are still dead Israeli people there, and we will fight as much as it's possible to bring them home.
Retrieval of bodies is as important as just bringing back the living hostages, especially because in Judaism, being able to bury the body is very important.
A group representing the hostage families has called it a blatant breach of the truce by Hamas. But the problem is locating the bodies under the ruins of Gaza's wasteland. The ICRC, which is helping in the search operation, called it a massive challenge, adding it could take days or weeks and that there was a possibility they'd never be found.
I think that there is clearly a risk that will take much more time. What are we telling to the parties is that should be their top priorities. And again, not only when it comes to the human remains of hostages, but other human remains.
Israel said until Hamas returns the bodies, it will keep the Rafah crossing closed and restrict aid, accusing the militants of not making significant efforts to retrieve them. Gaza's Civil Defense Service said 250 bodies had been recovered from under the rubble since the truce began. Decontamination of sites that may be littered with unexploded ordnance and the difficulty of identifying remains are among the top challenges.
Joining us from Tel Aviv, Yossi Beilin, he's the former Justice Minister of Israel and was key in the back-channel negotiations that led to the 1993 Oslo agreements between Israelis and Palestinians. Thank you for speaking with us here on France 24.
Thank you for having me.
After watching that report, we saw on Monday the tears of joy of survivors returning and being reunited with their loved ones. What would you say the mood is where you are today?
Still very emotional. People are greeting each other without reservations. Until yesterday, when we were asked, how are you? Usually I would say, against the current situation, personally I'm fine, but publicly I'm bad. You don't have to say these things anymore. You can say that you are fine.
Are people beginning the job now of processing what happened?
Well, I hope that what will happen today will be a public call for a state inquiry commission. It is needed. We must know what really happened. It was very, very strange. And the most important thing is to learn for the future what were the mistakes.
There was the contrast between the images of reunited families and the scenes inside of the Israeli parliament on Monday. They were all about Donald Trump, and then we saw the signing ceremony in Egypt. What are your thoughts on this 20-point plan and the way it's been presented?
A little bit strange because the Israelis were not involved, to the best of my knowledge, in molding this paper, but it was offered to Netanyahu, who apparently suggested some changes, and that's all. I'm happy that we have such a paper today, and that the Palestinian Authority is mentioned, and it proves again that the ideas of Netanyahu that he could do without Hamas, without the Palestinian Authority, as if they are almost the same, are now seen as a very, very big mistake, to say the least. And also the Palestinian state or statehood is mentioned, something that he totally rejected in the last years, although in the past, as you may know, he supported it. So the paper is important. It is very general. We will have to actually deal with it every day and interpret it in the right way. And there may be some different interpretations. But generally speaking, I must say that President Trump surprised me with what he suggested, and he was very, very tough on all the parties, and they were ready to accept it.
They were ready to accept phase one, and he put pressure on them for that. The phase two, the part that you know well about from your experience of trying to formulate some kind of framework for peaceful coexistence, that's a lot tougher. Does it matter the fact that it's all still a bit fuzzy?
Yeah, it is. It matters. But the fact that it is there, and there is a roadmap, although without dates, towards a Palestinian statehood, is very, very important, including what is said there about the demilitarization of the Gaza Strip, and the commissioning of the Hamas, and moving the Hamas leadership outside of Gaza. They will do whatever they can in order to prevent it. So we are going to see some clashes or conflicts with Hamas. But the good news is that President Trump succeeded to bring Turkey into the picture. And although Turkey is very much anti-Israeli and became also anti-Jewish, I'm speaking about Erdogan, they are very influential on Hamas. So once they are in the tent and they are ready to accept all the principles of President Trump, I believe that they may play a positive role, like I presume that they play today, when we found out that only 4 coffins were handed over to Israel. And now, as you said before, it was changed to 8. So they may have influence on Hamas, something that the United States doesn't have.
And hindsight is 2020 in your case. What advice would you give to the Israeli side to keep this process on track, particularly if you, as you said at the outset, they weren't involved in it at the beginning? They don't own this project.
Well, I'm not sure that the current government will accept my advice, but my advice to the Israelis is to replace their government.
Replace their government? Is that going to happen anytime soon? Elections not planned until next year.
Right. It is less than a year from today, and it may be even earlier because, as you know, Netanyahu doesn't have a majority as we speak. He lost his majority. So things may change. Maybe Netanyahu himself will change. He was in another place years ago. He supported the Trump plan of the 2-state solution in January 2020. And I think that we, the center left, should support him if he goes towards a two-state solution and gives up on his very strange partners from the lunatic right.
Is that what's happening? Is the opposition offering Benjamin Netanyahu a lifeline to quit his alliance with far-right settlers?
Not exactly. I mean, the opposition is suggesting him a safety net, which is limited in time. I suggest that he will get a full year if he goes towards the two-state solution and adopts the Trump plan seriously. I'm not sure that this will be the decision of the opposition. So what I can do with some chance of success is to advise the opposition to suggest to him a full year.
You mentioned earlier how Donald Trump surpassed your expectations in forcing us to get to this point. Trump, who was accused of emboldening the forever war camp when he talked about Gaza on the Riviera project. That project doesn't exist anymore. Instead, he's now shaking Mahmoud Abbas's hand like he did on Monday in Egypt. What changed? What happened?
Presumably, people told him that it was idiotic.
All right, we'll leave it there. Yossi Beilin, I want to thank you so much for joining us from Tel Aviv.
Thank you for having me.